Hello, my name is Ryan Bateman, and this assignment is called Required Components of a Transition Plan. This is for the Grand Canyon University College of Education, and my class is titled SPD 550, Instructional and Transitional Planning for Students with Mild to Moderate Disabilities. My professor's name is Dr. Gretchen Hoff, and today's date is August 31st, 2022. So secondary transition for special education students provides a bridge between their current life as a student and life post-graduation. This is facilitated by the transition plan that is required within every IEP by the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, or IDEA. In essence, the goal for educators should be to consider the student's abilities, talents, preferences in order to collaborate on a plan for the student's future success. Depending on their goals, there are various programs for the student to get involved in. These include vocational training, preparations for higher education, specialized education plans, and how will they live independently with minimal assistance, or can they live minimally without that assistance. Every situation is a little bit different and requires different considerations from the case manager. Ultimately, it's our legal responsibility to set the student up for success post-graduation and the time in between. According to IDEA, it's the IEP team's legal responsibility to have a transition plan in place by the time the student turns 16 years old. The plan can happen sooner if the team decides that it's in the student's best interest. However, we must meet that requirement by the time they turn 16. As a student matures and develops, their tastes, their preferences can change. Thus, it's up to the IEP team to make those adjustments and take those into consideration when they veer off and create a new plan. This plan should be reviewed along with the student's annual IEP review. It is also required that the student be invited to attend the IEP meeting in which their transition plan is being discussed. They must remain at the center of the plan and be heavily involved. After all, it is their future and their life that we're discussing. Along with the development of a transition plan and the annual review, key considerations that are made during this point in the IEP process are: what will their living conditions be? Will they live by themselves? Will they live with family? How can they support themselves and their preferred way of living at that point? Their employment. Will their preferred vocation make them enough money initially to live on their own or have those choices? It's also important to consider any services that may need to continue in terms of what the school is currently providing for that student. Can the student handle living alone and caring for themselves? Do they need assistance? What assistance do they need? What will they do for income? If vocation isn't an option right away, maybe they need to go into some sort of training program or post-secondary school to gain that certificate to get that employment. So these are all considerations that need to be made and reevaluated periodically during the student's annual IEP meeting by the IEP team. In the case study of Alex, Alex suffers from autism and spends a school day within a self-contained classroom and an office setting performing clerical work as part of the school's vocational program. He seems to be very good with his capacity and involves data entry and spreadsheet development. In fact, he also has a part-time job working at an office supply store where he performs similar duties. Considering his deficiencies, he sometimes takes a little longer to perform his functions of his job than his coworkers do, but is well liked by his boss, so that's important to note. Nonetheless, although considered a valuable employee, Alex is afraid of his boss and rarely speaks to him. Alex's job coach and family are concerned about his inability to communicate with his boss. They feel that if he were to receive more support by his boss and the boss would take more of an initiative in creating those communications, that Alex perhaps would become a little bit more comfortable in engaging with him and creating those conversations. Considering that Alex enjoys his current involvement with clerical work and has shown ability to be successful in that role, his post-secondary plan should involve future employment in a similar vocation. Since he's already working part-time with an office supply store, it's an excellent opportunity for him to grow that relationship, considering he's already in place, he's already employed. He just needs to build that relationship with his boss. His current academic assessments identify that he struggles with reading comprehension and oral expression, which makes sense considering the situation with his boss. He also struggles with specific social scenarios and personal relationships, like that with his boss and his superiors. Thus, Alex's transition plan should include supplemental work with a specialist to build upon reading comprehension and oral expression abilities. This should help with his slow task completion at work, especially when given new tasks by his boss. I would also recommend him staying in the current community vocation training to continue to develop his social skills. As his mother requested, further research and communication should be prioritized with the local vocational rehab center. This will allow future support for Alex once he graduates as well, and his current job coach can no longer help him to the extent that he is currently receiving. Also, considering Alex enjoys receiving a paycheck, as we all do, but spends most of it on movies and fast food, although this is a typical teenager, education and life skills and how to balance a budget for life after graduation is also necessary to begin right away. So he needs to learn some budgeting skills and how to manage his money a little better. The first strategy in a successful transition program should be to involve the school resources, starting with the student's counselor. The academic counselor can offer extensive knowledge on college requirements, vocational opportunities, and local programs that may help with his training, financial support, and even transportation services. Involving the counselor or various specialists within the district can also help provide ideas to specific accommodations and programs available to Alex. Furthermore, seeking out local programs outside the school can also offer more extensive on-the-job training opportunities, vocational training, and various services specific to his needs. It's typical for many schools and districts to work closely with outside agencies to supplement the needs of students like Alex. Finding a mentor that works in the field of interest is also an excellent example of a maneuver that the school can make on Alex's behalf. It's important that he start building those relationships again and just gain as much information as he can about his future vocation. Some common strategies to promote collaboration amongst everyone involved include clearly illustrating the measurable goals within the plan and allowing for regular communication amongst all parties and stakeholders. Collaborating with the students should be paramount, considering the student's teacher seems to be the regular voice of opinion in their life. It's important that bond be established and maintained. Beyond that daily communications, I believe that the weekly check-in with the students would provide a systematic review of the week's progress as it pertains to similar goals and checkpoints. Each week, the teacher and the student should meet to discuss weekly goals and follow up with the following week's goals, or the prior week's goals. Regular movements will keep the student interested and give them ownership of their own goals and accountability between meetings. Constant communication with the family is also important in mainstreaming their trust and collaboration. I think once a month is sufficient to discuss the student's weekly and monthly progress. Although this can be accomplished with a traditional meeting, sometimes a phone call, video call, or even an email can suffice. Similar to that of the weekly checkpoints with the students, which should be thoroughly documented, the monthly meeting can include all the information plus allow for the parents to voice their questions, comments, and concerns, and make sure we keep them involved with the entire process as well. Lastly, just as a best practice for all educators, creating a Google Drive or using a cloud system to update non-confidential information allows all parties involved to provide updates, information, and answer questions to see students' progress in real time without any thorough investigation. Of course, in-person communication is always best. Creating a file system in which the entire team can contribute allows for the most information available to everyone at any point. As each person in the team has their own specific role to fill, this allows a central documentation system and a more holistic understanding of the student and their daily interactions and performance. Ultimately, it is the IEP team's responsibility to create a plan that is both obtainable and measurable by systematic checkpoints and performance reviews. It can't simply rely on the start and end results. The plan must demonstrate progress. That way, if the progress is negative or non-existent, the team can act upon that and change course, need be. Targeting the student's tastes, preferences, and natural talents is always an excellent way to develop a transition plan, since the student already has an interest or talent for that proficiency. Whether it be vocations or geared toward higher education, considerations must be made in terms of proficiency, obtainability, and sustainability in terms of the living situation. Lastly, recruiting the involvement of the family, school and district services, and local outside agencies is the best way to ensure that the student will have support even after graduation. These services can include vocational training, financial assistance, ride sharing, or higher education programs to meet their specific needs. So, in short, it is the IEP team's responsibility to create a transition plan for Alex at the time he turns 16. After that point, it's important to meet at least annually, if not more often, to reconsider Alex's tastes, his abilities, his performance in various classes, and to make sure that that's still what he wants to do. The most important thing isn't just to provide them with information and kind of push them off into the real world to be on their own. It's important that the school stay involved up until the point of graduation, and should students like Alex need extra support, maintain that support or transition them to an agency that can offer that support into their adult life. So with that said, that is what a transition plan is in a nutshell. Thank you for your time, and have a great night.